some thick, sloppy weeds. I put on a Bondy Royal Orba, cast them from the back of the boat. Easy, girl. Okay, we'll get her back. Fish?
Oh, he's off.
No.
He's off. It's small. He's off. He was small, but
It's a start.
yeah.
Didn't matter. Oh, there's one. Yeah, that's
Get him, get him. You're twitching it, huh? Is it a decent one?
about a 40-incher.
That's not too bad. Oh. You seen him?
Oh yeah, he's on the bottom there. Come have a look here.
Yeah, I gotta see this. I can see your tube G.
So that's the fish right there. It's kind of zoomed out, but that's the fish, and then that's my lure in front of it. It's hard to see him right there. Oh, I just touched bottom, I think. That's the fish. But it's zoomed out too much right
He's
now.
got to be on bottom. I'm not seeing. Oh, now I just seen him. There he is. Gotcha.
So there's my lure, and there's the fish sitting right there.
Can you tell which way he's heading?
If he comes off the bottom, I can, but he's sitting too tight to bottom. Now he's kind of going away.
Yeah, I would say he's going in that direction.
Oh, there he's moving again.
27. He's down that deep.
Oh, that's nothing up here. Nothing to see fish down that deep.
Well, he didn't come from that deep, though.
Oh, I bet you he come off of that ledge. I mean, we're dragging him out into deeper water.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But no, he come off of that first break, so he probably come out of 20 feet.
Nice.
But even just seeing that tells me, okay, maybe they are not in the wind. It's been windy for a couple days. Maybe they're gonna be just sitting.
Fighting it themselves.
Yeah, maybe they're just gonna be sitting just out of these heavy winds. Yeah, it wasn't a giant, but would have been a nice one to start anyway.
Yeah, right.
He come up and he took one good look at it. But I always treat that kind of stuff as valuable information, right?
Do you ever see them like multiple fish together?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
quite often. Oh,
Got one.
what were you saying, Tim? Take your time.
Yeah.
No rush.
Oh, I'm jumping.
You're okay.
Trying to keep them down.
Tiger, I think.
Get him? Oh, nice. Nice. Beautiful. Over 40, I'd say.
Yep. I just gotta spot lock
42,
this.
43s.
Hey guys, I am out with my buddy Tim, and we are pretty much right on moon underfoot. We've been hitting some points that have wind on them, right, Tim?
Yeah, it's been windy.
It's been windy, and I was like, you know what, we got to try something different. I just raised about a 40 on a tube, And Tim just asked me, he's like, do you guys often see multiple fish on a spot? I don't even think I said yes. And you're like, I'm on. He's got a Bondy Royal Orba and Pearl White, junior size. You guys know it's one of our favorite lures. So we're going to get this one out. It's nice fish. We're going to bump it for Tim, have a good look at it, and we'll be right back. All right, Tim, how's that feel?
This is it, buddy. Thanks a lot.
42 right on the button, but 42 by fat, that one.
Yeah,
that's a nice fish. So let's get him out this side here, Tim.
All right.
And if you can stick his nose to me, that would be ideal. Grab his tail.
Oh, he's gone.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. He's a little for another day. Nice job.
Right on. Fist pump to that.
Yeah.
That feels good. Feels good.
My first muskie out of this chain of lakes here.
That's awesome. I was just telling Tim that we come out of the wind here, and the first fish that I raised, the 40, I was like, it's already telling me something that maybe these fish, after 3-4 days of pretty stiff wind, are looking for a break.
Right.
And I had just told Tim that I caught one of my bigger pike here a couple years ago with Dave. It's got some weeds, rock mix, really cool spot, and we are just out of the wind and just out of the lake current. So it's the type of spot that really holds a lot of value on a shield lake. And it's one that in the breakdown in the garage, I'll really talk about why you need to look for spots like this and what the importance of them are, because when you drive by a spot like this, it honestly doesn't look like much. And it's deep water, and Tim just commented, he's like, that fish couldn't have come out of 37 feet. I said, no, we're dragging it off that edge. And Tim got hit halfway in.
Probably what, about 14, 15
feet? 15 feet on that first major break line. So we're gonna get cleaned up, we're gonna make a move, and I think we kind of know a pattern. 2 fish sitting just out of the wind. We're gonna kind of replicate that as we go here, and hopefully we'll be back with you guys in a bit.
Yeah.
It will come as no surprise to anyone that the Bondy Royal Orba is catching fish for us again. It's been one of our favorite baits since 2019, as you've seen at the beginning of this video. We kind of stumbled across it, and I've talked about it in a bunch of podcasts that I've done, and my wife picked one up in the junior size to actually fish a walleye tournament with her brother, thinking that if they seen some deep suspended fish, she could cast something deeper. We always catch big walleyes on this every year, and turned out she didn't use it. So the fish at the beginning of the video where I say it started with this fish, I just grabbed the one that Kyla had, which was in a walleye pattern. I brought it out to Cedar Lake. We went out to fish an evening for our anniversary, and I ended up getting that really nice Cedar Lake fish, which was great. But that started a fall where we caught a whole bunch on it, and it soon became one of our go-to lures. Welcome back to another Little Tikes breakdown, and today's breakdown is brought to you by a somewhat newer name that I've been seeing in the comments, and it's Kyle Sarek. And he's been commenting and interacting a lot on a lot of our content recently. So I really appreciate that. And it's really cool seeing newer people get engaged with the community that we're building here. So totally appreciate it. So for Kyle Sarek, this is today's breakdown. So you guys hear us talking in the body of the video about it being very windy, and we're fishing wind-swept points, which in a lot of times that's where you go to look for muskies. But on a week like we had, where we had sustained winds over 3-4 days, pushing against spots, and in this case we had a lot of southwest or south wind. So again, north is to the top here. The lake current's actually pushing to the top. So we're fishing stuff on the north side of this basin, looking for active fish that were in those windswept areas. So the wind is actually pushing this way from the south or southwest. So the wind was pushing across here, and it was quite strong. Not strong enough that you couldn't fish in it, but strong enough that it was it was tricky with boat control when you were, you know, going sideways through those waves. So we had moved a couple fish, and right at the beginning of the video, you see Tim loses one where, again, we're fishing just out of the wind on a weed flat. So I kind of called an audible. I'm like, when we come down to this area, to back up one sec, I wanted to fish a section over here, but there were some walleye boats on the spot I wanted to go to out of the wind. So I'm like, let's try here. A lot of times we see fish using either this transition of weed to this rock, and it's deep, 45, 50-foot basin all around with steep breaking shoreline. So again, in the body of the video, you hear me say it doesn't look like a musky spot. And for the average guy that drives around there, even if they're side imaging it, it's deep, deep, deep. There's very shallow shelf. Unless you get right back in here, you don't see these weeds because they don't come to the surface. It's one of those spots, it's like a quote unquote guide spot. It's a spot that a guide finds and fishes consistently, but the average musky guy would drive right by this. So knowing that it's here, knowing that we've caught a bunch of fish here, Dave lost an absolute tank right off this point a number of years ago on a Suick. So we know there's big fish there. So I came in, we started down in here, and you hear me raise the one, and that pretty much our boat path, we're going to work around it. So we're sitting about here. I cast right to the edge of that transition where it goes from like that 10 to 15 foot ledge and then drops down to the basin. That little 40-incher come out. It was a skinny 40, wasn't very big. And then you see me kind of showing Tim what it looks like when that fish went down on the live scope. We weren't even looking up ahead with the live scope or even thinking of seeing anything up ahead until we started to move the boat. We got reset. And you hear Tim, do they often pair up, or do you see more than one in a location? And by then, we had kind of drifted up to this area, and Tim actually cast back, and he probably gets right at the edge of that shelf, and that fish hits partway in. I suspect it was sitting right on that transition again where it drops down to that steep basin. And turns out to be a really nice fish. Not super long, 42, but it was a really nice, thick, fat fish. So on a day where it's really, really tough, capitalizing on those audible decisions you make in the boat, or finding those spots that a lot of people would look at this spot and think of it as like a B or C spot, not like your A spot on the lake. But for us, knowing it, it's always been one of those A or like A- spots where you can't drive by it without checking it. Question I get asked a lot is, how do you find spots like this if you're only coming up for a week or you don't have a lot of time to explore? The biggest thing I can tell people is look on Google Earth, whatever body of water you're going to. If it's Eagle Lake and the predominant winds are northwest or southwest, like look ahead, see what the forecast is going to say for the winds and the weather for your week. And if you're getting a week of northwest winds, look to these points that are pointing to the north that might have some interesting structure. And a lot of times on Google Earth, you can pick up structure just by looking at it. Here's a couple pictures of just some random spots on Eagle Lake, for example, that even if they're good or not good musky spots, just by looking at the sat photos, you can tell that it's got something going on there and it warrants at least exploring it. That's the easiest way to find those spots. Go up, use your side imaging or your mapping, and at least have a look at it. You can pretty easily rule out some spots just by, driving by it and mapping it and imaging it. So that's the easiest way to kind of find those spots. And a lot of cases, you don't actually have to fish a spot to learn it. Just using your electronics and kind of driving around in conjunction with using some of the mapping that, Google Earth or, any of that kind of stuff works or will work for you. So that's kind of my tip of the day is do your homework, study those lakes on Google Earth, and you'll find spots like this. And then as you start to spend more time on it, all of a sudden this spot that most people are just going to drive right by, we see very few tourist or camp boats fishing this area, but yet the guys that know this lake, we are going to stop at this spot every single time. and maybe only 4 times out of 10 we're going to see fish on it, and maybe only 1 or 2 times out of 10 we're going to catch, but that's stacking the odds in our favor on a tough day. Well, Tim, was a good day.
Learned a lot.
We only ended up with the 1, but we talked to a couple of my buddies out here and they hadn't even seen anything today. So consider ourselves pretty fortunate that on a tough day, we were able to capitalize on the fish that we did see.
You found a pattern, you found a pattern.
Yep, we got a pattern and we kind of proved it. And then I finished the night off here, the day, showing Tim a spot that I consider one of the better spots on the lake. And because Tim fishes vermilion a lot in Minnesota, that it's a shield lake for all intents and purposes, fishes a lot like this.
Yeah.
Tim likes fishing deep water, and I showed him a lot of spots that are very familiar layout to him, so that'll help set him up for his week out here. And we actually just raised one here. I didn't get it to the boat, but I seen it come off the rocks. We raised another one on a very similar spot, so it should be enough to give you an idea of where to kind of start. And for us, it kind of proved that we're fishing the right spots. The fish are just a little bit temperamental today.
Yeah, they are.
But we got one in the bag.
Water's turning green too.
Yeah, we got lots of algae blooms, so you got to deal with that. But on a really hard day, you take anything that you can get, pretty much all you can do. And for another video where Dave and I struggled on a day and we managed to capitalize on a couple good calls, check out the video over here. And for now, 54 bust, and my buddy Tim, we're out of here. We'll catch you guys out on the water later.